Good afternoon, my fellow entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and future millionaires everywhere. Let's get comfortable and roll up the next episode of Risky Business. Today I'd like to talk about the 3 R's: risk, reward, and repeat. That's risk, take a risk, receive a reward, and repeat it. And I've got a little video up of some automobile assembly lines, factory automation. That's where I started my business, way back when. And I remember that I received a request for quote for an assembly line, pretty big assembly line. And it was my first year in business, and I remember receiving it and thinking, wow, this is a really, really big project, and it might be a little bit beyond my capacity as a startup. So that was my first thought. My second thought was, well, I want to run with the big dogs, so I'm going to have to take a risk. So one of the things that entrepreneurs are associated with is risk taking, or they are dubbed to be risk takers. And actually it's just the opposite. They are risk mitigators or risk managers. So what entrepreneurs will do is they'll identify the risk and try to eliminate as much of that risk as possible so they can manage the risk. So when I think about risk, I think of somebody jumping out of an airplane with one of these wing suits on, and gliding through a 3x5 hole in a rock. I mean, that's an adrenaline rush. Entrepreneurs, they're risk takers, but that's a real risk taker. So what I did was I decided that, okay, if I'm going to run with the big dogs, I'm going to have to take a risk. So I approached it like any other project I had in the past. And I made a list of all the knowns and thought of as many unknown unknowns as I possibly could. And I put a figure on this, and I reviewed it, and I kept reviewing it, and the figure kept getting higher and higher as far as the investment required from the customer. Finally, I came down with a figure, and I multiplied it by 3 to cover the risk that I was getting myself into. Now, I thought I'm probably going to be very high on this quote, and my chances of getting it 50-50. At least I will be running with the big dogs, and the worst thing you want to do as a supplier is no quote it. You no quote things enough times and you won't be invited to quote again. So this is where the story gets a little funny. So I got the project, and the customer and I were having lunch together prior to the rollout of the project, and he says, did you ever wonder why or how you got this project? And I said, yeah, I laid out the best proposal, the best investment, and the best delivery date. And he starts laughing. And I said, what's so funny? And he says, you got this project because you're the only one that quoted it. Everyone else thought it was too risky. So take that risk, put your reward on it. Now the reward was, I knew I was taking a big risk for me. Apparently it was a big risk for my competition, all my competitors who thought, or at least I thought, they were in a much better position to handle this project than I was. So here I am, I have this project, I put a huge reward on it for myself, and then of course to repeat and do that. Project went well, it allowed me to continue my launch. That was one of the first requests that I got the summer that I started. So it's risk, reward, and repeat. Now the reward is the profit. That's the profit that you receive from doing a good job. Once all your costs, all your fixed costs, all your variable costs, all your what your personal time is worth, everything you bring to the table, all those costs, once they're covered, those costs are covered, then you put your profit on top of it. And that's what's going to help you grow your business. The robotics assembly line always intrigued me because it has every bit of automation you could possibly think of. And it has people interacting with the robotics. And I know that automation, robotics, everybody's afraid that the robotics world is going to replace human beings when actually they've created more jobs to date. They've actually created more opportunities, higher pay than the jobs that they've displaced. So the challenge is that human beings have to up their game to work with the robotics. So risk, reward, repeat. The hard part is the repeat, and that is you do a project and okay, the project's over, you're celebrating, and now how do you repeat this? How do you go out and find another application that's just like this? Well, the secret to that is to start looking at repeating before your existing project is done. And you're building trust all the way through the process with your customer. So when you start approaching the end of the project, that's when you start engaging your customer and looking for new projects. And be assertive, assert yourself and say, look, this project was great. We'd love to work with you again. What's on your agenda? Is there someone else at a sister plant that we can work a project with? So you want to make sure that the repeat part of it starts before the project ends. And you want to avoid finding yourself in your office thinking, okay, that was a great project. I got some money in the bank. Where's my next project coming from? So let's back up and talk a little bit about risk. So a lot of people, they want to avoid a risk at all cost. And it's pretty tough to run a business or be entrepreneurial without taking a risk. So the way to get comfortable with risk is there's a couple of ways. First of all, you want to do all your homework and make sure you have everything covered. The other thing, the way to experience getting comfortable risk is to take a risk and actually miss your mark and feel the pain, and also living through the pain and finding out you're still here, you're still in business, project went a little sideways, you got through it, and okay. So get ready, set yourself up, learn your lessons from that project that went sideways, and apply those lessons learned to your new risk opportunity. So with that said, risk, reward, repeat, risky business out.